Screen for me to say that one. Thank you, Verla, for your very warm welcome, your warm embrace. It reminded me of those days in the Young Democrat when you were coming up under me. We're speaking not literally, figuratively. But it is fantastic to see Verla's development as she soldiers in Christchurch to bring home the Christchurch West seat, and the reports are that Verla de Pisa is ahead in that regard. The Young Democrats, of course, have been a tremendous nursery, and you would have heard Don Villinis on the radio today battling against another product of the Young Democrats, albeit one that went in the other direction. We are such a fantastic nursery that we have produced politicians of both political parties, and that says something about that organization and what it has done. But please allow me to bring greetings from St. Michael, not only St. Michael South Central, but indeed the entire St. Michael team. And this train continues to move across Barbados, and the next stop, I believe, if the General Secretary is going to be true to his word, will be in the parish of St. Michael. I'm sure you'll hear more details about that as we continue to spread the gospel of the Democratic Labour Party. I greet all of the members of the Democratic Labour Party here, the well-wishers, the supporters, and yes, those who are here visiting. Special greeting, of course, to Senator and Mrs. Ben, our hosts, of course, Ainsley, who some of you all would probably call Czar, is a long-standing friend of mine, and in spite of a slight age difference, we were students together. We studied for our graduate degrees and in business administration, so it's a very close friend, and even though I was abroad on business, I could not allow this opportunity to go by without coming here to speak in support of the candidacy of Senator Ben, or should I say Ainsley Czar, whatever you choose to call him. He is a genuine inspiration to the other 29 candidates, because in spite of whatever Herculean task he has ahead of him, he has a passion and a dynamism that he's going about his task. As you heard earlier, he's already behaving like if he's the parliamentary representative, and that says a lot. And I believe there is a lot that the people of St. Peter can have to mull over and think about as they make their decision with respect to who should represent them going forward from 2013 and beyond. It's 2013, right, Donville? Donville, it says he has the date of the election. Every cabinet changes it all the time, though. But nonetheless, there is a quality representative in place in the form of Ainsley Ben, and we hope that the people of St. Peter will just sort of rectify that and make it official after the next election date, that he can continue doing the fantastic work he's doing in his parish. I want for just a moment, and I know that time is limited, I want to speak to a group that may very well be the minority attending this meeting, but certainly when we go through that door will form the majority. The majority of you in here, like me, are Dems. We are DLP supporters for life, and we will support the Democratic Labour Party, and we will do that. There is a minority in here and a majority out there that you will have to confront as you go to church, when you go to work, as you go about your leisure activity, and those individuals who do not necessarily support the Democratic Labour Party, they do not support the Barbados Labour Party either. They do not support any political party. But these people feel strongly about Barbados. They are patriots. They love this little rock and they recognize it's someplace special. My position is, and I think that we can make an excellent and eloquent case to that majority that they should definitely stick with this government and reject what is on offer. And why do I say that? The Barbados Labour Party, if you look at their recent past, the last time they were in office, the 14 years, they don't like to go back. You know, they like to tell you, let's look forward. And as their positions change on just about everything under the sun, they don't want us to do that. But if you look back, you will see that there was wastage, there was reckless borrowing, and there was reckless spending. That is in the past. What is occurring now in the present? The recklessness continues with some utterly reckless utterances. So if you look at the past and you look at the present, you have an eloquent case going forward to the future what to do. Reject the Barbados Labour Party. It's as simple as that. They are on a grab, a power grab, a naked power grab. Anyone can see that. And I think we need to once and for all put them in their place. But I want you for just a moment to juxtapose that against the Democratic Labour Party. Let's talk about our past, our glorious history, socially engineering this country and making it into a developed nation, the industrial development, modernizing tourism, manufacturing for a period of time in the 70s, and of course creating the international business sector with the legislation in the late 60s. And you see that we have a glorious past, one where we put Barbados first, ahead of party. The too many and not the too few. Yes, I learned well sitting down next to Dennis Kelman in Parliament for 9 years now. And when he came into cabinet, guess who he came and sat next to? So I learned well. Kelmanomics, the too few and not the too many, and punish consumption and encourage production. And the list goes on. And that Moscow was always a big, yeah, we know. Kelly tends to get it right all the time. But in addition to that glorious past, where we, in essence, yes, put Barbados first, let's talk about the present as well. And again, I want you to understand, I'm trying to make a case to those Barbadians who may not necessarily be like you or me, support the party, irrespective of whatever the circumstances. And to those people, you can see that once again, we have in fact put Barbados first. These are difficult times, and we have been responsible and prudent in how we manage the affairs of this country. And again, it demonstrates our instinctive modus operandi, where we think that even in difficult times, we have to be prudent in how we deploy resources. We could put the party ahead of the country, but think about the price tag it will have for future generations. We have put the country first. And by doing so, we are further reaffirming the very same reason the majority of you decided to associate with the Democratic Labour Party, because Errol Barrow, Erskine Sandiford, Sir James Tudor, they all put the country first as well. It is just during that period it meant doing certain things in terms of socially re-engineering, and during this period we have to be responsible, recognizing that things will not always be bad, and that we want to create the right foundation for future development. So I think there's a very coherent case that can be put as to why you should not support the Barbados Labour Party and why you should support the Democratic Labour Party. And I think we have to continue to trumpet that as we go about the lengths and breadths of Barbados. Yes, there may be economic challenges. Yes, we may not have been able to get all the jobs that we would have wanted in the public sector. But the point is, you can sleep peacefully at night knowing that we will not imperil the country's finances, imperil the situation in such a way that it will hurt us down the road. And that is what the people of Barbados need at this time. You've heard it time and time again. Countries far larger and better endowed in resources are suffering. They're sucking salt, to use the Barbadian expression, but we are holding the fort. And you know, the funny thing is that, as difficult as it is, we have still been able to carve out certain areas where we've been able to focus on some important areas, some things that need to be done. I think that in these circumstances, to be able to do what we've done with our housing program says a lot about the priorities and the focus of this government. And we need to say that, because the Barbados Labour Party are very, very weak on that subject. You will recall when Liz Thompson and Reggie Farley were the ministers of housing, how embarrassed they would get when the raw statistics were presented to them with an embarrassment of riches in taxation, etc. They could not find it possible to have any sort of serious housing program. In these difficult circumstances, we have been building houses all over Barbados, and it says a lot, including in this parish, again demonstrating our maturity and not designating that anyone should be punished on the basis of their voting history. And we have done work on several housing projects in this parish. But I'm sure when your MP in waiting or MP designate comes on to give his report in a few minutes, he will talk about all the projects that have been going on at that level. And that in itself also brings me to the parish and constituency of St. Peter, because, you know, I also believe a very eloquent case can be put to the average resident in St. Peter why they need to send Owenatha into full retirement, because he's semi-retired already. I leave that to you, sweetheart. I can't say that. But, you know, the Prime Minister already made mention of the fact that there's this itch. You can't sit down in the floor of the house at all. Usually licking down, I wouldn't hear what the chaplain to get out as quickly as possible as soon as the prayers are read. As soon as he gets himself marked, he's out through the door. And I am saying, well, maybe he has had enough. And if he's had enough, that is no problem. I think the people of St. Peter can do him a favor. It looks to me as though the people of Barbados are also rejecting him in his capacity as charlatan-in-chief or political leader of the Barbados Labour Party, whichever one you prefer. Thank you, sweetheart. I like that outfit. I want one of them for the next meeting. Owenatha took a 15-point plan to the Chamber of Commerce. A 15-point plan to a group of individuals that traditionally would have been his base. These are the people who would have supported him extensively in the past. I would have thought that that is where he would have been putting his very best foot forward. The whole thing has been comprehensively rejected, not only by ordinary Barbadians, but even his own colleagues recognize that what he is proposing simply can't work. I said earlier, they were on a vote-grabbing campaign. It is clear they are on a naked vote-grabbing campaign, and we will not be fooled by such behavior. Charlatans, that's what they are, trying to fool the people, and he is the charlatan in chief. I might add that one of those 15 points was also calling for Scotland District to be developed. Now, knock me down with a feather. He has been the parliamentary representative since 1984. This is 2012. 28 years. And he has now, in a clear blue cloudless sky, been struck with lightning, and he can come up with a plan for the Scotland District. Well, you don't have to worry. Ainsley has had one of those in plan now for a number of years, and it will be implemented when he is the parliamentary representative for St. Peter. No firm positions on anything. And as for these promises, you know, when Mia Motley responded to the budget, she promised out, well, it was about $800 million in promises. Now, we ain't got the money, according to them. $300 million to subsidize the oil for the light and power, $500 million for tourism, and a couple other tens of millions knocking about. Then about $1 billion. Let's roll it off at $1 billion. And promises from me. Of course, Owen can't be outdone, so he now gone flying past $1 billion. He promising $1.5 billion in promises. Now he gonna cut taxes. He gonna cut VAT, everything else. So they are trying to outpromise one another in an environment where, according to them, the treasury is low. So I want right-thinking Barbadians, those patriots that will try to argue that maybe I am seeing things through a political lens, to think and to realize that if you want this country to continue progressing along the very positive, the very sensible lines that is progressing right now, that you should support the Democratic Labour Party, and that is the bottom line. We need to reject and put Mr. Arthur and his wild, reckless promises into retirement. Lay them to rest, yes, the promises and so on. And once and for all, let's do that. We don't need to go back to those dark days where Parliament was used as a weapon against citizens of this country. In fact, Parliament had degenerated to a place where we dissolved Parliament in early December 2007. We walked out, we had enough of it. We have maintained that Parliament is some place that should be respected. And I think that Barbadians here and abroad can appreciate that. The paramountcy of Parliament and the respect for Parliament. The same way that we have governed in that manner as well. And so I want to again just underscore that I think that we have to continue to support the Democratic Labour Party, and I want to make a special appeal to the people in St. Peter. You need to come out in your numbers as well, and in spite of what may have obtained in the past, let us make St. Peter Democratic Labour Party territory and send a message to the kind of reckless behavior that we have seen. Anything is possible, Ainsley, and you're working hard. It can happen. I don't think Obama expected to get Florida, but he got it. It can happen. Mr. Romney was in such shock, man. You couldn't believe it during that night. I have to, just for a moment, speak a little about what has been happening in tourism also. we were elected in 2008, and in our manifesto, we pledged, in essence, to put people at the center of our tourism industry. It was very much in keeping with the overall theme of the manifesto of putting people first. But you must understand, based on the traditional structures that have obtained in the industry, that was really a large ask. The status quo has always been that the industry has been dominated by certain large players. We were proposing, I suppose, a new deal for tourism, much along the lines, I guess, of what Franklin Delano Roosevelt would have done 70, 80 years ago in the US when he proposed a new deal. We concluded that the institutions that govern tourism need to be looked at, and again, this is in the manifesto, that an exaggeration, an elaboration, or an expansion of the Barbados Tourism Authority in its present structure, we did not think that that was the wisest thing to do, and that for the fundamental change to occur, we needed to look at our structures. This was what the ministry, of course, recommended to cabinet, and it has indeed accepted it. We have a mature product. We have a product that is in some respects tired, but in some respects very well known, and we decided to take it in a different direction at the structural level. And hence the reason for going with a product entity and a marketing entity, because we determined that those two areas needed to be looked at in a more focused manner, given where we are in terms of our level of maturity. But we also believe that overarching and undergirding these entities should be a strengthened ministry with its capacity for research and, of course, strengthened policy direction, etc. over the entities. And that is where we are, and that process, as I said, has been approved by Cabinet. The Parliamentary Council, the Chief Parliamentary Council currently has it in terms of getting all the tidying up done so that we can put that in place with respect to the necessary amendments that need to go to Parliament. And when that occurs, of course, then we will be able to forge ahead with restructured entities that can better execute the plan that we have identified, where people will be at the core of our tourism offering. But we didn't think that we should do that in a vacuum. And that's why for the first time we developed a white paper that spelled out the tourism policy of this government. We needed to expand a little on what was contained in the manifesto, and we came up with a white paper that has also been approved by government. And that white paper has spawned a master plan, or will be central to the master plan, also promised in the manifesto as well. And I think we should keep our promises. That document was what was endorsed by the people of Barbados. And what we have done at tourism is try to move tourism in a different direction, in a more people-centered direction. And in doing so, we have been loyal to what has been suggested within the context of the white paper that provides for the government policy. The master plan will, of course, be stretched over the next 20 years. We'll speak to issues like manpower planning, the villas versus the hotels, the whole issue of community tourism, and what we can do to get more people involved in tourism. Those are some of the issues that the master plan would look at. And it also takes into account some of the other work that this government is doing. I had the second progress report delivered to me, and in fact, after the first progress report, I made sure that the human resource development strategy of this government was incorporated into their work as well. And I can say too, that having had the second progress report, and I have been exposed to the National Employment Policy of Barbados, an excellent document that the Cabinet has approved. Let me just say, I was not in the island when we were in St. George, but had I had the opportunity to speak there, I would have mentioned the fantastic work that Dr. Esther Baisaku is doing in the Ministry of Labour. We have not had a Minister of Labour produced in the manner she has been producing, but that National Employment Policy is a sensible framework for how we can look to have our country enjoy near full employment. I know there are some purists who say you should always have a little bit of unemployment because of the competition, etc. But I don't think in the context of a developing country that I necessarily share that view. You can have near full employment, and it's something we should certainly aspire towards. And tourism wants to play its part as well in that regard, and to have jobs that are sustainable. And in that respect, we are taking into account all of the different aspects of government's policy with respect to our master plan for tourism going forward. Much of the tourism development, or in fact all of the tourism development that has occurred in the last 50 years has been ad hoc. That's not to say they weren't good initiatives, but we've never had a tourism master plan before, and we will have one shortly in a couple of months, thanks to the Democratic Labour Party. One of the other key, very important initiatives, of course, is the host program as well. We have had tourism awareness campaigns before. The one that is probably best known is tourism, with the slogan, "Tourism is our business, let's play our part." Alistair Green, Massey Green, no stranger to most of us in here, when he was the PR manager at what was then the Board of Tourism, he came up with that campaign. But rather than repeat another tourism awareness campaign, we decided to put tourism awareness on steroids and come up with a host program. And in essence, what we are looking to do is to see that all of those persons who are on the front line in the tourism industry can become hosts of the destination, so they are not only aware per se of the broad aspects of tourism, but they can become integrally aware of some of the specifics. So someone visiting from wherever, you can stop the gardener or the guy who may be cleaning the pool, and if he is an official host as identified in the Barbados Together host program, he can answer questions and so on about the destination. I think it's an excellent program, and again it recognizes the DLP belief that people are what is most important. It's okay to have the finest attractions and so on, but if you don't have the people who are at the front line on board and enfranchised and part of the whole process, then you could find yourself obviously a little behind the 8 ball. And we have done what is necessary by devising a very good program. I also can credit May Hines, who's of course not again a stranger in these parts, for having worked very hard for putting together something that is positive, that is developmental, something that can have benefits not only in the short term but in the medium and long term as well. And that in itself, I think, is a very, very positive development as well. An awareness campaign taken to another level altogether. I just thought that I would also touch on some of the current concerns as well. And Verla mentioned the diversification that we have done in our source markets and so on. And I think she's telling me I got to wrap up too. But she's also on the board of the Barbados Tourism Authority, so she would be well aware that that decision in itself was a deliberate one. These are difficult times, and we are not going to always get the numbers that we would like to see. So we have to be sensible and clinical in how we go about trying to get business. So when the Barbados Labour Party spokesmen tell you that our numbers are down over last year, what they should also mention to you is that for the first 6 months of 2012, our output from tourism was actually up by just under 2%. They're not going to mention that. The average length of stay of a visitor for that period was 7% longer than it was for the period before, and that is no accident. We recognize that if we're going to get fewer numbers, we have to target And that's why we went into Scandinavia, because we know the Scandinavians tend to spend more and stay longer. We had a very successful effort with them out of Stockholm, Sweden. And this year, it's going to be coming out of Stockholm, Sweden and Helsinki, Finland, doubling those numbers out of Scandinavia. And at World Travel Market, we were able to assure that through TUI Nordic, next year we will be tripling those numbers, because it will be Stockholm, Scandinavia, and Norway as well. Good business, recognizing that we need to be sensible in these times. But no one is going to mention that. I don't like to play the numbers game. Numbers go up and they come down. I have no red jet this year, so obviously the summer is not going to be what it was in 2011. But you work to suit. And that is why the developmental initiatives like the host program, like community tourism, like getting the master plan right are also very important, because you need to have the right framework to work with, so that when future Democratic Labour Party governments have to run this country, the foundation is there, and you don't have to play simply a numbers game, which is all you get from the Barbados Labour Party on this issue. So I don't think that we need to worry too much about that. I just have to mention very, very quickly as well, by way of new initiatives, and Verla, I know you had a lot to do with this as well. I got to talk about it because I know you're going to talk about yourself, but the Barbados Tourism Authority and the Rihanna campaign. It's officially being launched November 21st on the social media. She, of course, has 70 million followers on Facebook, 26 million on Twitter, and another 3 million on something called Instagram. Don't ask me what that is, I'm not sure. But whatever it is, she gets the destination in front of people. The visitbarbados.org website was enjoying 2,000 hits a week before Rihanna did her sneak preview. They are now getting 68,000 per week. That's what we're doing. And so thanks to that campaign, we are hoping to get in 19 million households after November 21st. No campaign ever done by the Barbados Labour Party in 14 years ever got a fraction of that kind of coverage. Let me say it straight. We have spent millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars and have never been able to reach that level of exposure. We are getting into nearly 20 million households, Destination Barbados, thanks to the creative way that we are thinking at the Barbados Tourism Authority, embracing new media and taking this thing to another level. St. Peter is a constituency that does rely heavily on tourism, and I think that the people here need to be made aware of that. I want, of course, to thank you once again for bearing with me. Let me just, as I depart once again, appeal to those persons I appealed with when I began, and that is, whatever color politically you may be, you are a Barbadian, you love this country, I think you understand the fundamental bond that must exist between the people and those that govern them. We have proven to you that we are worthy of being in government and that we should continue to govern this country. And so I want to only implore all of you who are here who maybe haven't made up your mind yet, I hope that I've given you something to think about. And those of you here, of course, who are like me, who have already made up our mind, we have something to go and talk about as well. In the parish of St. Peter, Senator Ainsley Benn is a very good man. He's already proven to you he's a capable representative, a very capable and competent government minister as well. And we want him to continue in that capacity from the lower house, where he can also represent the interests of the people of St. Peter. So once again, let's go out in our numbers and support Ainsley Benn. Let us go out in our numbers and support the Democratic Labour Party. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.